Welcome to Guest of the Year. I'm the host. My name's Mike. This week's guest setlist curator is Ryan Eldridge from the renovation show Maine Cabin Masters, which just finished its 8th season on Magnolia Network. He also hosts the podcast From the Woodshed with his colleague and brother-in-law, Chase. Welcome, Ryan.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Very happy to be here. Just another notch in how much the Grateful Dead has played a role in my life.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you. All right, here's how the game works. We'll play the first part of a Grateful Dead live track, and each contestant will use the messaging system to silently guess which year their performance is from. Contestants, who are all on a video conference together, can message in their guesses at any time during the clip or in the 10 seconds after it concludes. Whoever is furthest from the correct year is eliminated. The last two Deadheads standing will have a best of 3 series to determine a winner. We've got a returning champion, Garrin, here with us, and we'll meet the rest of the Deadheads in a moment. But first, without further ado, the Grateful Dead.
We can share the women, we can share the wine. We can share what we got of yours, cause we done shared all of mine. Keep on rolling, just a mile to go. Keep on rolling, my old buddy, you're moving much too slow. I just jumped the watchman right outside the fence. Took his rings for bucks and change. Ain't that heaven sent? Hurts my ears to listen, burns my eyes to see. Goddamn man in cold blood, Shannon, might as well be me.
Okay, the guesses are in. That was a Jack Straw at Oxford Plains Speedway in Oxford, Maine, a hometown show for Ryan on July 2nd, 1988. Sweet pick, Ryan. Why'd you choose that Jack Straw?
They always loved to play Maine. It's for some reason they always had really top shows. Because you know why it is? Because they're here the best time of the year. They're not here in January. I bet if they were here in January. Oxford Plains, those are classic shows. And Jack Straw was my wife's favorite song. It was a song that I overlooked for a long time. You know, you have those songs. And in the last 10 years since we were married, my love of Jack Straw, I didn't see the Dead until I was, until 93. You know, but I remember we dropped my stepfather off. My stepfather, Kyle, is a big Deadhead, and he's the main reason I got into him. But I still remember I was talking to him today about dropping him off in the car and seeing him walk off down the street to the Speedway. So that had a little sentimental. The first day with my mom was Lewiston, and she wore high heels, I guess, and fell asleep. Yeah, that's a family story. That's a great one.
Thanks, Ryan. Great pick. So we had 2 people get it exactly.
Yes, nice job.
Rob and Joe. Rob is 46 and he's from Brooklyn. Nice job, Rob. How'd you figure that out?
Well, I mean, once Jerry started singing, it was pretty clear what was going on. He was a little raspy, and I could tell by Brent's keys it was late 80s. I mean, the recording quality on that one was tough, but it was just a perfect era for them. I went 88. I thought 89 maybe, but I knew it was in there somewhere. And they were just awesome then. And I listened to a lot of that era, certainly 89. So I kind of knew the sound, and it was a lot of Brent's keys, and Jerry's vocals gave away that it was a little later on.
Awesome. You're on to the next round. Along with Joe. Joe is 54 and he's from Ennis, Montana. Joe, you nailed 88 as well. Do you think of something along the same lines as Rob?
Not exactly. Let me just say, Mike, I'm just glad I didn't go out in round 1. That was my number 1 goal here, hoping to not. I don't know. I guess just listening to it and listening to Any Dead and trying to ever since I signed up to do this, just trying to guess the year, I just tend to bracket it, and I felt like it was clearly 88, 89, just had that sound. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like, Mike, you have so many. I've listened to a lot of your shows, and so many of the guys that come on are so knowledgeable and so technically knowledgeable. I don't know if that's really my angle. I just listen to so much of it that it's just a feeling, it's just the sound and the era, and it takes me back to places in my life, and that one just kind of felt familiar.
Awesome. You're on to the next round. Our returning champ, Garrin, guessed 1987, and he is also on to the next round. What'd you hear there, Garrin?
The keyboard tones were obviously late 80s, but they were somewhat organic sounding. So I thought I leaned towards 87. It's, 87, 88, it's sort of a crapshoot for me.
Thanks, Garrin. Welcome back. So Josh is also on the next round, which makes Dave odd man out. Josh guessed 86. Dave guessed 80. Josh is 57, and he's from Rochester, New York. Nice pull, Josh. Why 86?
I was listening for probably something I shouldn't listen to, which is Brent's vocals. How strong is it? How high is it in the mix? And it's like, well, you don't know what's controlling that. But I think the main thing that pushed it a little earlier for me was how bad Jerry sounded. I don't mean bad, I mean unhealthy. And I thought, oh man, what was the really unhealthy zone? And, I thought, well, 86, but it was kind of a guess anywhere in there, kind of mid to late 80s. So
you went right before the coma because you thought he sounded like trash.
Something to that effect.
Right on, Josh. You're on the next round.
Thanks.
Dave is 48 from Providence, Rhode Island. Dave, you guessed 1980. What'd you hear there?
Oh my God. Who knows? I was way off. I've been practicing on this with my my daughter's been playing me tracks just randomly when we're in the car. She's 11. She knows more Grateful Dead lyrics than I do by far. Like we just drove back from Boston this afternoon and sat in traffic for 2 hours because they're off school this week. So she was playing me a bunch of songs. I was like a year off and everything. And here I just blew it. But man, what are you gonna do?
Dad of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, heck yeah. What's a better prize?
It may say more about how bad I am at remembering lyrics than anything. But
well, how did you get into the Dead, and how did you end up raising a young Deadhead?
I've been into music my whole life. I started taking piano lessons when I was 5. I grew up in a small, tiny town in central Wisconsin, about 800 people. So, played piano all the while I was growing up, and, kind of country music was played in the house. And then in the 80s, started listening to Top 40 radio. So, heard Touch of Grey, really liked the song. I didn't know anything about the Grateful Dead at that point. Really liked that song. Got into high school, started listening to some jazz, when I could find it on the radio, like public radio, playing in the jazz band in high school. Then when I got to college, so I went down to Northwestern and, just north of Chicago for college. My freshman dorm, it was a weird arrangement. I was in a very short hall with about 10 rooms. And it's basically a bunch of freshmen in there. And the guy with the loudest stereo was this guy named Carlo from Sarasota, Florida. He's a huge Deadhead. So he was, playing Dead. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I remember like the first 2 things that grabbed me were One from the Vault, like The Eyes of the World, and Blues for Allah. Like all that kind of jazzy stuff from the, mid 70s just grabbed me. So, started seeing shows when they came to Chicago at the Rosemont Horizon and Soldier Field, 93, 94, 95 is when I saw them. And then started getting really into Phish too. I mean, that was kind of their peak years, 95 to 98. So started really getting into listening to Phish and started, noodling around the guitar. When I went out to California for grad school, started playing guitar because didn't have much money and didn't have time to do much else. And then picked up the bass kind of toward the end of grad school. And then literally the weekend after I defended my PhD thesis, I answered a Craigslist ad out in the Bay Area for a band looking for a bassist, and met like 2 of my best friends like that weekend. Guy was best man at my wedding, formed a band. The first band was kind of a little more bluegrassy oriented, kind of String Cheese Incident flavored. So, we did Cumberland Blues and, some of the other Sitting on Top of the World, bluegrassy songs. And then I moved out to the East Coast about 10 years ago, played in a Fish cover band for a couple years out here. And then 5 years ago, joined a Dead tribute band called Playing Dead. And so we play all around New England. We play every Wednesday night at a place called Soundcheck Studios in Pembroke, Mass. So I'm really getting into the Dead, which is why it's an absolute embarrassment that I biffed this one so bad. But gonna take some shit from my bandmates there for sure. The cool thing about this band, honestly, and it's a real challenge for me, is that we don't do set lists. So we go on stage and it's we do the kind of the Bobby Jerry alternating thing with, I sing a couple Phil songs occasionally, like Unbroken Chain or, Pride of Cucamonga.
So how do you guys signal what the next song is going to be? Is it always just a strum of a guitar?
The Jerry guy, our lead guitarist, it's almost always just like a little noodle between songs. He'll play I think Jerry used to do that a lot, just play like a little noodle where you can, hopefully you can pick up on that and hear what song it is. A lot of the times we have talkback mics on stage because we use in-ear monitors. So we do have the possibility to talk. So the Weir songs he'll often step up to the mic and say, hey, looks like rain, or, whatever song. But the Jerry guy likes to kind of keep that spontaneity and try to mess with us at times, I think.
Your own game show up there.
Exactly. Yeah, in front of people.
Garrin is in a tribute band, Gratefully Yours, and he's the Jerry, and he is the same ethos of improvisation. Garrin, how do you guys choose and relay the songs up on stage?
Yeah, it's a lot of, between song, little musical cue communication. And we also do a lot of first set segues and stuff. So obviously in that case, you're trying to sort of seamlessly go from one to the other.
Got it. Well, Dave, thanks so much for being here. And you have a cool daughter, so you're the real winner here.
Thanks for having me. Luck to y'all.
Thanks, Dave. Okay, so Josh, Joe, Rob, and Garrin are on to the next round, and Ryan has another killer pick. Let's hear it. All right, the guesses are in. That was a Space Jam into an Ico Ico at War Memorial Auditorium in Rochester, New York on September 2nd, 1980. Ryan, that was a really cool pick. Talk to us here.
I've always thought that show was phenomenal. One of my favorites, and I think it's kind of a preview of what you're starting to get coming up. Brent's on the piano there. That's a second set Ico, and Ico's starting to come around. So they're starting to play around with placements and stuff like that. Yeah, that was kind of the one I thought maybe it's kind of a little deep and see what they know, kind of.
Yeah, great pick, Ryan. Very cool. Joe got it exactly, and he was the only one to get it exactly. 1980. Joe, talk us through it. Nice pull.
Oh, thanks. Well, Brent obviously right away is a clue. So I'm thinking 79 to earlier 80s. So I kind of bracketed. I'm like 79 to 83. It's right in there. And then the more I listened to it, the more I thought about it, I think things sped up a lot into 81, 2, and 3. They just started, kicking a little faster. Anyway, good feeling. Got lucky again, Mike. So I'll take it.
That one was not luck, Joe. That's a very, very rational, analysis and choice based on that analysis. Nice work. So Josh and Garrin both guessed 1982, and they're both on the next round because Rob guessed 1984. Yeah, so Josh, why'd you guess 82?
What totally threw me was Jerry's guitar tone. Like, what is going on there? It's like, I'm another guitar player in yet another tribute band. And like, I do the Bobby stuff. I'm like, what is this sound? And at first my gut said, was that some kind of MIDI patch? And that threw me into late 80s, 90s, whatever. And then, heard Brent, but the pace was so weird. And so that was sort of a stab in the dark. Like I playing the game, like, would you guys do it? Would you do another late 80s? So I was like, okay, it's probably early. But that, honestly, the vibe of that, the pace, that's really unfamiliar territory for me, which is ironic because I live in Rochester, New York. Although in 1980, I had not discovered the Dead yet. So, and I actually never saw a show here, which is weird, but we'll get into that later probably.
So Garrin, yeah, Josh was wondering, we're all wondering what was going on with Jerry's guitar. What'd you hear in that regard, and why'd you guess 82?
It was just a very like mid-rangey, sort of muted, didn't have a lot of top end clarity. The first thing that a lot of times the first thing I listen for is Brent's keys to try and zero in on an era. And it sounded like a Fender Rhodes. So, and he did that. He played that a lot in 80. I'm realizing that I associate 1980 with really like high def recordings. And that was sort of, it sounded like a board or a Matrix at least, but it had sort of a muffled kind of, wasn't like sparkly kind of quality. So that threw me off a little bit, but yeah.
Thanks, Garrin. So Rob, you're eliminated because you guessed 1984. Sorry. Why'd you guess 84?
Well, I would say the first half of the 80s are probably my weakest point, although, between 92 and 95 are hard too for me. But I heard something in Brent's keys that made me think it was a little later. It would have this like clangy sound, this like feedbacky sound. And it was in the space portion up front that was very cool and very chill. And I really, in hindsight, should have realized how chill it was, that it wasn't 84 where they were playing a little faster. Anyway, I was really out of my element. And I immediately went 84 because of this tone and the keyboard. And I was like, oh, maybe it's 83, but didn't matter. I wasn't close. And I really do love 80. So I'll check out that show. Thank you very much. And I'm bummed I'm out, but I'm not surprised it was on an 80s show, an early 80s show, or first half of them anyway. So
got it. So Rob, how did you get into the Dead?
Well, my older sister went to a show probably in like 93 or something, and she came back and like burned her jacket, and I was curious as to how that happened. Really, that was kind of like the first thing. I was like, what's going on there? And around the same time, I went to see the Horde Festival, and I saw some, a scene that was really interesting to me. I was into hip hop growing up in Brooklyn in the 90s, but anyway, it was like a connection between, say, improvisational music and the jazz samples that the hip hop artists were using. Things started to meld for me, actually, and I just fell in love with it, like kind of the jams and the improv portion. That wasn't it at first. Someone in summer camp like gave me a tape, and it was mostly like Skull and Roses era, pretty fast and furious and fun, Dead. But I love the 70s, early 70s, especially jazzy 70s too. But the 90s as well, 89, 90, I love it all. But yeah, it was through, some friends, and being exposed to like the jam scene in the early 90s. I was really into Blues Traveler, actually. They were fantastic, before they kind of blew up. and seeing them and the Allman Brothers, you know, and I saw the Dead for the first time and the last time. And that was the show where they played Unbroken Chain, which is a notable thing about it. But the show itself wasn't like spectacular, of course. Yeah.
What was that like when they broke into Unbroken Chain?
I have to admit, I really had no idea like the significance, and I really didn't even know most of the music at that point. Like I was just getting introduced to it as it was ending, so to speak. But then I went to University of Michigan and I traded tapes pretty aggressively as a freshman, and like, you know, built a collection and got to know like this stuff. And I've been listening ever since. So, you know, it's a long time. Bummed I struck out on the second round, but hey, what are you gonna do? So I've been listening since you started, and I stopped listening once I realized I was going to be on it because I wanted to like clear my head here, and it didn't work. It didn't work.
Damn, you've been listening since the beginning?
Yeah, the first episode was promoted by Mason or something like that. You know, early I saw an ad for it. You know, someone promoted you, and yeah, it's amazing. I've been playing along, and like mostly everybody, probably been playing this game for as long as I had like satellite radio or anything like that. You know, you always do this. Oh, what is that? What is that? I'm not going to look at it. I know what it is.
Well, thanks for listening, Rob. Appreciate you, and appreciate you coming
But
on.
I didn't know what it was. 1980, man. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate you guys. Good luck to you all.
All right. Josh, Joe, and Garrin are on to the next round, competing for 2 spots in the best of 3 series, and the winner gets the Guest of the Year merch, Guest of the Year shirt, designed by Dylan, who draws up the posters. So if you like the posters, you're going to dig this shirt. It is coming out this week, and there will be more information on that. But as always, you can follow everything on guestoftheyear.net and our Instagram at Guest of the Year Show. Let's play the song.
On the tower, world at my command. You just keep turning while playing the band. If a man above you got no sin upon his hand, let him cast stone at me for playing in the band. Playing in the band. Daybreak on the land.
Well, that was a playing in the band at Nassau Coliseum in New York on September 7th, 1973. Ryan, tasty pick. Why that playing?
I really wanted to feature some Donna, and there's a reason behind that. I got a story. So a couple of my good friends from the old band Strange Folk, and they used to play the Garrin of the Vibes. And we were up at the one when it wasn't in Connecticut, it was upstate New York. And we're backstage, and there was no one back there except myself and my buddy Tim, who plays the Maine Dead project. And we were just hanging out, and we'd like never been backstage. It was like a circus tent with some carpets and a free keg and some couches. And we had, enhanced our mood, and we're just hanging out back there, and things are starting to kick in, and we're giggling. And this lady walks in, and she pours beer, and it's all foam. And I was being a bartender, so I was like, you got to do it this way. And I did it. And then it's like, holy crap, that's Donna Jean. Okay. And it's just Donna. My buddy Tim over there starting like, maybe he's keeping it together, but he's going for a ride. And myself. And I'm just like, and like she turned around, I'm like, hey, like, and he's not getting it. And we just start talking. And everyone has their Donna thing, and we all have bad nights, but we start, and we all have great nights too. And we all have nights people don't even know about. But we start talking to her, talking about the music, and she just, kept going back to Muscle Shoals and how her son's in this new band and was so proud of him, and she's like, we had a great time, but we were just all just having too much fun back then. And she's like, there's some things I wish I could take back. We all had off nights and good nights, but she owned it, and as proud as she was of her son, I just had a different respect for her. I thought about it, we all do have bad. I have crappy days when I can't hit the head of a nail, I mean, sometimes Dawn is a blast. Sometimes the timing's not perfect, but I just looked at the whole situation better, and I just wanted to give her some love.
So it was a long conversation.
Oh yeah, we were back there for quite a while. It was probably only 20 minutes, but in those situations, it feels like days. Yeah. Actually, I think we slept back there or something. It was a fun night.
So Garrin was the only one who got it exactly. 1973. Garrin, you're on to the finals to defend your Guest of the Year title. How'd you pick out 73?
I mean, 72 was just like, by the end of 72, they were just like a machine to me. It's just, they were so muscular and they had such a great swing, and everything was so put together, and that felt looser to me. I knew right away it was 72 to 74, somewhere in there. It just had this loose swing. Some of the drum fills were sort of just like, that thing of like falling down the stairs and are you going to land in the right spot in a beautiful way. And then Jerry went into that sort of wah-wah, the manual wah-wah thing. I just, yeah.
Way to go, Garrin. Josh guessed 72, so he's on to the finals as well. Joe guessed 76. Josh, why 72?
Well, it's funny because at first, like, my gut said 73, right? I remember what previous contestants had said about the microphones and the S's and all that stuff. And it's like, I really wasn't hearing that. But again, you don't know what the source is really. So, it felt like that 72 cooking vibe. It was in that zone. And I just like, and I think it might have been because my band is we just played Playing in the Band at rehearsal for the first time last night, and we're basing it off of 72. And it's the recency effect. It's like 72, and it was a 72. I typed in 72, should have gone with my gut and said 73.
The recency effect strikes again, but it doesn't cost you because you are on to the next round. Joe, you guessed 76. So you thought you heard Mickey in there?
No, that's not what I thought. But I kind of bracketed it. I'm like, okay, right away, I'm like 72 to 76, got to be in there somewhere. In hindsight, I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Obviously, that was a 73 sound and a 73 show. I just kind of panicked at the end there when it started to fade out. I'm like, I need to hear a little more of this. So I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. This is hard, man. I wish I could change my answer, Mike. I will say I love 73 so much. I think it was, if I had to say when Jerry was at his absolute happiest, I would pick 1973. I mean, I just feel like that was when he was just on fire in every way, and so I'm really disappointed in myself that I picked that. But hey, I said at the beginning I was just hoping I wouldn't go out in round one. So
yeah, nothing to hang your head about, Joe. How did you get into the Dead?
Oh man, I think I heard the Dead when I was really young, like 12 or 13 the first few times. So I was aware of them, but it wasn't until I was in high school. I think I was a sophomore in high school, and my older sister got tickets to see him at Starlight Theater in Kansas City on September 3rd, 1985. And my mother, God rest her soul, my mother, I think, just knew in her heart and trusted that, letting her kids and her young son go see Jerry and the Grateful Dead was a good thing. And so my mother wrote me a note to get out of school on Tuesday and Wednesday to drive all the way across the state of Missouri. I lived in St. Louis. It's a 4-hour trip. So we went over there with my older sister and her boyfriend and saw that show. It was a one-night venue, and that night unequivocally changed my life. for the better. Absolutely. So I owe a lot to my sister Rebecca. Big shout out to you, Rebecca, and my mom for really just knowing. My mom loved. She was a different generation, another times forgotten space, right? But she loved. She loved Reckoning. She loved like Ico. Uh, she loved Monkey and the Engineer. So she had a taste for like the music a little bit from us, down in the basement smoking weed and stuff. She's like, "What is that?" But she really made it happen more than anyone. And ever since then, it seems like I just all my greatest friends in life were all deadheads, through high school and college, and that's all we did was scheme on how we could go to the next show. For 10 years, it was like, where are we going next? So almost everybody, all my friends are deadheads, and those who aren't tolerate me pretty well. So anyway, I owe a lot to my mom and my older sister. So anyway, this is great, Mike. I love this. This is so uniquely Grateful Dead. It's super fun, and I really appreciate you having me on. And all my buddies want to be a part of it now. So you're doing good.
Thank you, Joe. Really appreciate it. So you got all these buddies. Do you guys, discuss the Grateful Dead, see shows together? How do you keep the conversation going that started years ago when you were all out seeing shows together?
Well, I it's not hard. It's just an everyday part of my life, and I think a lot of other people's lives who I know. I personally don't travel much to see live music anymore. I travel to fly fish the world. That's my business, and my passion is fishing. So I mostly live in the past with the Grateful Dead, and just I listen to it. It's the music of my life. So I'm a student of it now, and I listen to it all the time. You wouldn't know it by my last pick, but I am a student of it. And yeah, I don't know.
Do you have a policy on when you're fly fishing? Do you have a policy on wearing headphones, listening to the Dead, or do you try to zone out on the river?
I do kind of have a policy. I don't like to personally have the Grateful Dead just playing all the time in the background. I like to actively listen to it. I like to put on these Bose headphones with the highest quality recordings. Hunter Siemens, by the way, God bless you, Hunter Siemens. The Matrix recordings that guy has put together and released for us are the greatest thing I've ever heard. It's my life's mission to collect all of them. So I like to do that, to actively listen at very high volume. So I'm particular about it a little bit. I just don't want it just kind of droning along in the background all the time. If we're gonna listen to the Grateful Dead, let's do it, man. Let's turn it up and get into it. So we don't actually listen to it on the river that much. I'm a fishing guide, so I don't force it on other people. I like to share this passion with people that have the same obsession.
What's your business name, sir?
Madison River Fishing Company and Trout Stalkers in Ennis, Montana. And when you walk up to our building, there's a Steely on the window, and there's a beautiful picture of Jerry at Shoreline Amphitheater at 1986 that a friend of mine took inside. So we pay tribute to Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead every single day in one way or another. Yeah. And that's, I have met so many people in my business because of that. Just having those subtle little things, people will just come in and be like, "Who's the Deadhead here?" Like, well, that's me, and I made so many friends through the Grateful Dead, through going to shows for 10 years and then just kind of wearing it on my sleeve, I guess, in a sort of quiet way, not too on your face, but I put it out there that we love him and it, guys like you are like, "Hey man, what's up? I'll go fishing with you."
That's amazing. The reason I knew Ryan was a Deadhead is because on his show, he's always wearing Grateful Dead stuff. Then I just asked him, like, "Hey, Ryan, do you mind being on the show?" And he graciously said yes. But, Ryan, is that something that you think about too? You're like, are you thinking about projecting the Grateful Dead iconography?
I feel so honored and humbled that I can just be an ambassador, like, I can't believe it. They even let it go, to be honest with you. Let's just, not only that we got 8 seasons on TV, I just can't believe I wore season 1. We didn't think we were going to get a show. We know we got a pilot. That's one in 1,000 ideas gets a pilot. And then 1 in 100 pilots gets the first season. So we had nothing to lose. But I remember the first shirt I wore I bought in the lot. Didn't want to wear licensed material. It was just just kind of like a square red blue with lightning bolt, and it might have said Grateful on it. and that they let that go. And then like, oh, well, try something different. For the first 3 or 4 seasons, it was always, lot artists and stuff like that. Cool stuff people sent me, but it's turned into you guys, you wouldn't believe what people have sent me over the years. Since then, I've had amazing shirts. I've had two ladies, their husbands died and wanted me to have their, collections. And like, these are shirts that they could sell for hundreds of dollars. You guys know how popular that stuff is. It's just unbelievable. If you guys know, but I mean, if it's way bigger than I think we all really understand. I think a big thing now is that we can do this and we're not judged like we were, maybe in the 80s. I don't think in the 80s, if I was on a show and wearing a dead shirt, I don't think it would have flown. But
Yeah.
it's one of the biggest honors in my life, and I'm very proud to do it. And I met more friends and more people, and shirts come in the mail all the time, and I try to represent them. And yeah, it's a wild ride.
So the producers never give you any grief about wearing dead shirts?
They haven't. So we have a family heirloom as well. I got skinny enough to wear it like 2 years ago during the pandemic. It's my stepfather's 84 shirt from Augusta, Maine. It's just falling apart. And I mean, you can see my nipples and my man boobs, and you can see everything. And I didn't care, For some reason, they were almost gonna not let this. One time it came up. Well, and this whole crazy ride we're on, Big Steve, he's watched the show. I haven't talked to him in person, but we talk online and stuff. And so that was right about when I was talking to him a little bit. I was like, what do you think of this shirt? And just people notice it. And I don't think we would have had season 2 or 3, because after we got season 1, I was on all these social media sites like, hey guys, we're a bunch of deadheads in Maine. We got a show. We need ratings. And I wasn't a big social media guy now. Now it's so important. But I was on all these sites and just throwing out a help us plug. And they would look at number and it helped. It really helped. So thank you all.
So Joe does not listen to the Dead while he fly fishes, but do you listen to the Dead while you're doing carpentry?
The radio is the first tool that comes off the trail and the last tool to go on.
I love it, Ryan. Thank you. And Joe, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Mike. Good luck with it, man. This is great.
Appreciate
nice to meet you, Joe.
Yeah,
Cheers.
likewise. I'm going to send you a t-shirt, Ryan.
Please do. I'll wear it.
All right.
So Josh and Garrin are on to the finals. The winner gets a spot in next week's show and a Guest of the Year prize pack. Ryan's got a song. Let's hear it. Okay, that was an I Know Your Rider. Let's hear what they thought before I reveal the answer. Garrin, you guessed 1989. Why did you think 89?
Let's see here. Well, the tempo was super brisk. That doesn't necessarily mean 89, but that was one thing I noticed about it right away. Bobby has this really like glassy kind of somewhat processed kind of tone, that sort of chorusy distortion kind of thing. The band sounded like really healthy and animated to me. And I associate that with that year. It was a great year. It was one of my favorite years. I have an affinity for that for sure. So I was like, that sounds like home to me a little bit.
Do you think 89 is the peak of the post 70s Grateful Dead?
I do so it's interesting. I was so excited when they came out with that Spring 90 box a couple of years ago. I was so psyched for that because it was a great year. But one of the things I remembered is that they were so heavily doing MIDI stuff then. And I just find it sort of, it didn't bother me as much at the time, but now it's a little bit of a buzzkill in the middle of song. To me, anyway, just personally, it's trumpet and clarinet and stuff like that. Some of it was great. Some of those tones I really liked a lot, like the pan flutes and stuff I thought were pretty cool, but some of it is just so, a little bit jarring. So that's why, 89 was sort of like pre-MIDI, and they were just, I don't know, they just were riding high, I just feel like that was a great year. Saw some shows then too, which were very like important in my personal development. So
cool time to see shows. So Garrin thought 89. Josh, you thought 81, kind of the opposite end of the 80s there. Why'd you think 81?
Yeah, it's funny because my gut said, wow, this is happy. These guys are cruising. This is awesome. At first I thought like could be 89. It seems like it's kind of bookends, right? You sort of have early 80s, Brent's kicking in. It's, they're getting psyched. And so that's why I went with 81. That was the gut. And the irony is, in my band, I'm the Bobby, and I'm always listening for Bobby stuff. I did not pay attention at all to Bobby's tone. And I will bet you $100 that Garrin's right, by the way.
Well, Garrin has the right idea. It was I Know Your Rider at the Omni in Atlanta on April 1st, 1990. So Garrin goes up 1-0 in the series. Ryan, really, really nice pick. Why that rider?
90s, the rider might be my favorite. Like I said, it sounded so young and fresh, and Brent is just on fire, and just the tempo, it's just amazing. And I just always loved that one. I mean, I was talking to Mike earlier, and I'm riding home from work today, and on Sirius they played 920 90, and I was like, man, I think I like this one better than what I sent in. Like, can I change my list? It's like Murphy's Law. But that's the great thing about this, isn't it, guys? Like, you hear one and then you listen to another, like, oh man, that's amazing. But the biggest thing about this is the evolution. Think about like an early rider, with Pig, and then all the way to this. Like, what a different song.
Totally. So Ryan, how did you get into the Dead?
I guess I'm very lucky. Like I said, my stepfather, my parents divorced when I was, I think, 4 or 5. And, they taught me a valuable lesson that for a lot of times there's someone out there you're supposed to be with. And I've been lucky enough, but my 2 bonus parents, they've all been together. I got a great stepdad. I got a great stepmom. But my stepdad was about, I think he was 10 years younger than my mom. So I think my mom was like 33, 34, and he's like 20, 21, and then I'm 4, my brother's 2. And he was just getting into the Dead and stuff, and he didn't have the best childhood, he'll tell you. But he would go down to say his uncles outside of New York City, and like getting on the subway, going into the city and stuff. So I mean, he grew up a lot faster than most of us from Maine, but he always loved music, and it was always in the background. I can't believe I used to do this. I could picture in our garage playing darts. He'd come home, artwork in the lots, and we would, as young kids, we throw darts in it. I mean, all these posters. And when I finally smartened up, I tried to save them, and like bring it into my college dorm rooms. By then they were just so tattered. But it's been a big part of my life, and it really shaped who I am, it's just amazing. I like how everyone has their things. Like, my nieces have horses, and we just did a camp for a friend, my good friend's son, and they're loppers, live action role play. Not my thing, but they're so into it, and that's what they do. That's what they do on weekends. Like, we used to travel, like you said, scrape every penny you can to go to the next show, and it's just love that about people and how, and I just think we're blessed that it's music, kind of consider myself an atheist, and I get more from music, when I'm having a bad day, I put that on, when I'm having a great day, I put it on. And, it's got me through some really tough times, and I've celebrated the best times with it. It's been with me through everything. And I haven't met a deadhead I didn't like for the most part.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, so Garrin is up 1-0 in the series.
I'm rooting for this one. No offense, Garrin. So we can get another song.
Keep going, right.
All right, let's hear it.
Comes a time when the blind man takes your hand, says, don't you see? Gotta make it somehow on the dreams you still believe. Don't give it up. You got an empty cup. Only love can fill. Only love can fill. Been walking a morning, been walking all night. I can't see much difference between the dark and light.
Holy moly.
That was, yeah.
Nice choice, Ryan. So that was a Comes a Time. Josh, your guess was 71. Why 71?
Honestly, that's a tune I don't know very well. Sounded like a really, really respectful audience. A really, really young, very fresh sounding Jerry, but I didn't know how far back to go. I didn't know if it was one of those, I don't know. I think there was some Europe 72 shows that had a similar feel. I figured it was early 70, 71, 72.
Great. And Garrin did think it was 72. Garrin, why 72?
It's weird because Comes a Time, it didn't come out on record until Reflections, I think. And I think that was like 76. And I remember when they came out with a release where it was on a really early 70s show, it sort of blew my mind. I was like, oh, wow, Comes a Time is that old of a tune. Because it sort of went dormant for a while and then it came back really heavy. Like they played it a lot in the mid 80s. And, it's one of those songs that sort of would disappear for a while and then come back. But yeah, very youthful Jerry, sort of a lo-fi analog kind of sound on the instruments. Phil's bass tone is that classic, I don't know, I think that was Big Brown or whatever that bass is called. Those reasons, I guess.
Well, Ryan gets his wish for rooting for Josh on that one to get a game 3 because it was 1971 at the Taft Auditorium in Cincinnati. Great pull, Josh. With that respectful audience. Love that. Love
I don't know.
No, that was beautiful. Ryan, why'd you pick that one?
Like you said, Jerry's voice is just so healthy in that. And just that version, you could just feel his voice, like that just catches me. And like Garrin was saying, I think it comes a time later on in the whole, timeline, just an interesting time, but Jerry is just right on and the drummer thing. And I was just kind of interested to see what these guys would, pick apart in that.
Yeah, it doesn't get much more beautiful than that in terms of Jerry's voice. Josh, before we continue, could you tell us how you got into the Dead?
So I grew up, I'm 57, right? So I have a a story that's really different from everybody else, I think. I grew up in a non-musical family. My dad had a stereo, really nice stereo that he played very little music through. It was much more about the gear than anything else. I didn't have older brothers or sisters who were into the Dead or anything else. It was like kind of light jazz and stuff. So in the mid 70s, I'm listening to AM radio. Around 11 or 12, I picked up the guitar. Got my first stereo when I was 13, got a bunch of different records. Anyway, time goes along, and junior year in high school, I joined a band. Classic rock, Stones, this, that, Jethro Tull, some Pink Floyd, various stuff. Basically anything that was easy enough to play for a bunch of hacks, right? And one of the guys brought Friend of the Devil and Alabama Getaway. So we played those, and to me, it was just kind of, okay, well, this is a little different, but it's kind of just classic rock. But reflecting on it, it's like, what I remember most was how contentious it was. Like, bass player didn't want to do it. Rolled his eyes every time it came up on the set list. So I was like, and that set me up for like how contentious the whole topic of the Grateful Dead. I think so. Time rolls along. Then joined a different band the next year. We did Truckin' and something else. And it was always there as like something I liked, but I didn't dig into it, And then time goes along and kind of different, I kind of got into everything at different points, prog rock and jazz fusion and singer-songwriter and new age, and took electronic music classes in college and all this stuff. And it's like, and the Dead was always there. I went to a bunch of shows in the mid 80s. I saw Jerry on Broadway, 87. I think that was my last Dead related show. And it was there, but I hadn't really dove into it. Even when I went to those shows in the mid 80s, I was kind of listening for the tunes that I knew, and I probably didn't know 90% of it. Fast forward to 4 years ago, and I had fairly recently left the original band that I was in, kind of between projects and stuff. And I met this guy who was this incredible singer, guitar player. And I was like, holy shit, this guy's the real deal. Time rolls along, and he sends out this Facebook post, and it says basically, hey, who wants to form a Dead tribute band? I know there's a million of them. I don't care. And I was like, okay, Garrin and any other musician on here, you always want to play with people who are better than you. This guy was 10 miles better than me. So it's like, all right. So I wrote him a note and I said, hey, I know you're into Jerry. If you're looking for a Bobby, I'm willing to give it a shot. So it was like, cool. So, and I knew that he would form a great band around him, whether or not it involved me. Anyway, bottom line is he forms this band, and he said, we talking about the set list, and he sends me these tunes and specific versions of them. And one of the things I remember the most was Birdsong was on the list. And he's like, we're doing Veneta 72. I didn't even know what the hell that was, right? At the time, I was like, okay, well, he's got the hard job, right? He's Jerry. Bobby, I know he's a little different, but I think I can do this. And as soon as I started digging in, two things happened. Number one, I realized, oh shit, this is really hard, because this guy is not playing by any established rule book. Throw out all the licks, throw out even how you do your vibrato. That's when I became obsessed. And as I got deeper, other aspects of the music just got me, like the lyrics. I was a guitar guy, so I didn't pay a lot of attention to lyrics. Suddenly I started paying attention to lyrics, and Robert Hunter, genius, like holy moly. So it was like, kind of going to the edge of the water because of this guy. His name's Eric Carlin, by the way. Our band's called Eric Carlin's Half Dead. And as I got deeper and deeper into the water, if you kind of the Jerry analogy of scuba diving, I just dove in, and it's so deep, I can't even see the bottom. So that's kind of how so it's only been a few years, even though I've been kind of a fan, since, the mid 80s and liking the music. Now it's a different thing to me. Advanced my playing. It's changed my attitude towards creativity. Watching the Long Strange Trip documentary, and they talk a lot about how they would take hallucinogenics and it would remove the ego, the self-judgment. That is a massive deal to me. And even though I don't do any of that stuff, the fact that I know that they were super focused on that, removing the ego, removing the self-judgment and all that, that is very freeing for me, because that's in the spirit of the music. You know, these guys are totally fallible one night to the next, you know, and it's like, that to me is really inclusive and freeing, you know, because for so many years I listened to music that was impressive, right? It was shredders. It was people who were there to knock your socks off every note, every night, perfect. And that doesn't do it for me anymore. You know, now it's about spontaneity and communication and being in the moment, and maybe the moment's not there, and that's okay. And it makes the magical moments that much more magical. I mean, this isn't any new thought for you guys, because you're deadheads and you know that's part of the charm of it. And it's more than charm for me. It's a way of looking at life, you know. So sorry. That's
amazing. And you tied up the series. It is 1-1, and we're going on to a game 3.
As we say up in Maine, we got a barn burner here.
Let's hear it.
Walk me out in the morning dew, my honey. Walk me out in the morning dew today. Walk you out in the morning dew, my honey. I can't walk you out in the morning dew today.
Okay. Our combatants are 10 years apart on this morning dew.
Wow.
Garrin, you guessed 87. Why 87?
Honestly, I mean, my very first show was in '87, and at first I was like, "Wow, is this the do for my very first show?" But just the quality of Jerry's voice, it was raspy but healthy, and the parts the band is all playing are just like settled in a way that I really respect about that era. It was like, it wasn't rote or overly, rehearsed. It was just, they'd played some of this stuff so many times that everybody knew exactly where to be, like all Phil's da, 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 boom, leading into the verse and just all that stuff. They're all just interlocking in such a beautiful way. And also like, there was a little bit of like, this is super geeky, I guess, with like the sort of like reverb on the vocals, and was sort of a signature of that era, in my opinion. I don't know. Yeah, and the room sounded pretty big. Sounded like an indoor arena,
What was your first show?
9/18/87 MSG. So.
Cool. So Josh, you guessed 77. You were thinking, something very different. What'd you hear there?
I mean, it's so funny. This is twice now it's happened where we've made the same observations and gotten opposite answers. So my first thought, now this time I was listening to Bobby, and having tried to learn that part,
Yeah.
I know that part goes back earlier.
Right.
I can't remember exactly which versions, 73, 74, whatever it is, but I was like, I heard the reverb, and I was like, yeah, that's a big audience. But man, I bet he probably varied that more by the time the 80s rolled around. And this sounds like his 70s part, and the way they were playing and the groove. I just got in an argument with my best friend, who happened to be my best man at my wedding too, whoever talked about best men, about 72 Morning Dew versus Barton. And he's all about Barton, I'm all about Europe 72. and what's the groove? And I'm like, yeah, there's a little disco in the Morning Dew on Barton. And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, anyway. So it sounded so much like those 70s parts that I've been trying to learn for months now, that I was like, I bet it was different later. So I went with 70s, and the Barton show's coming up next month, and that's just down the road for me. So I was like, you know what? This is a sign I should guess 77.
Awesome. Well, the recency bias got you, Josh. It was 87, and it was 9/18/87. Going to that show,
dude,
pays off.
Wow, that's crazy.
Stuff like that just happens, isn't it, with this band? Like serendipity, man.
That's very cool. And you guys had such poker faces when I said that too, and neither of you
great.
gave it up at all. I was like,
My wife and I, that's our favorite. One of our friends says Augusta's 84, and like everyone has their version, and
yeah.
But I was thinking about, what Joe was saying, and both this, the 87 and 77 are right after they weren't hitting it that hard, I never thought about coming out of 75, 76, and just that energy of 77, 78, 79. It's almost the same as coming out of the coma and going into the late 80s. I never thought of it like that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to ask the other guys on the call if they play Morning Dew in their band, and if so, do they have a hard time deciding whether to play it at a bar gig, at a big club, at a concert, whatever? Because we get into endless arguments about this. It's like, we have a bar gig on Saturday. Morning Dew was on the set list, and it got removed because we're playing at a bar. It's like, do people at a bar on Saturday night want to hear Morning Dew? I do.
Yes.
But I don't know. What do you guys think?
Dave and Garrin?
Like I said, we don't really do set lists, so that it all happens organically. If we we actually just played it the other day. We did an Uncle John's playing Uncle John's, but that just kind of happens, and we actually don't play that song very often, so it often tricks me up. So there's a lot of really cool fill bass parts that, if we only played every couple months, it kind of tend to forget those. But I don't know. I guess it depends on the bar and how many people are there and what the vibe is. If it's like people are wasted and talking a lot, you probably don't want to play.
Right.
Because the cool part of that song is when you really drop down before that second guitar solo. That's like one of my favorite moments of music to play.
So powerful.
I'm just hitting a D.
I didn't know you guys thought about that stuff.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
good.
yeah.
I've never thought of that either. Garrin, would you be hesitant to play it?
We're also similar. We don't ever have a set list. So when it comes up, I'm always happy. But like Dave just said, I'm also, a lot of times I'm like, shit, I wish I had I had 10 minutes to run through this in my head. Because harmonically speaking, it's very simple, as these guys are referencing. It's just a handful of chords. It's not about that. It's about creating the chords with multiple lead lines, essentially.
Right.
So everybody is really playing single note lines throughout that entire song. Jerry's really, he's keeping the skeleton of it together with the chords, but he's also playing all those da do 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 and all that stuff. He's playing a lot of single note stuff in there. So anyway, it's just such a cool arrangement.
Nice, Garrin. Congratulations. Josh, nice run. Ryan, great. Thanks for doing it. Nice choice there with the MSG do. That was a killer one.
This has been great. Far beyond my expectations. Hearing you guys is amazing.
Well, it's been amazing having you here, and thank you again. And thank you to all the contestants, and congrats, Garrin. Okay, subscribe to Guest of the Year on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For all the show links, including our YouTube channel, go to guestoftheyear.net. And if you want to be a contestant on the show, sponsor the show, or make comments and ask questions, email us at info@guestoftheyear.net. Big shout out to Dylan for drawing the posters. Big shout out to Mace for curating the prize packs. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks to the amazing tapers whose recordings made this show possible. Congratulations to our back-to-back champ, Garrin. And to our other contestants, thank you for playing, and remember, it is all one song anyways.
And I bid you good night, good night, good night. And I bid you good night, good night, good night.